Hey people, I'm doing away with my usual spiel tonight since I'm doing the breakdown a little differently as well. I've been looking at my analytics backstage with each video I upload. Obviously some videos get more views and more interactions than others, and that's just how it works. However, I'm looking at my pop culture stuff and it gets the least amount of anything else I upload. I have stuff I uploaded 6 months or so ago getting more views now than pop culture reviews from last week. Obviously, this segment isn't working, so I'm going to be changing it up a bit. Try to shorten it down, see if that helps. For this week then, what I'm going to do is be taking one big story from each day and doing a paragraph or so on that and then move on to the next. Just to see if that helps with the interaction at all. If it doesn't, I'll try something different. I'm committed to making this thing work and to try to entertain everyone who watches my videos. So, without further ado, let's get into this. The story on Monday is something that I jumped on the moment I saw it. It's something that impacts me on a fairly personal level. Not like family or anything like that. I'm not that arrogant. I wasn't literally crying or shaking as the window lickers like to say. It did, however, make me sad and affect me in a personal way. The event I'm talking about, that I actually mentioned in my movie review, is the passing of a legendary author, Anne Rice, at the beginning of the week. This woman had a huge impact on my life, both as a child watching Interview with the Vampire, which she wrote the screenplay for by the way, as well as when I got older and actually managed to sit down and read the books that she wrote, specifically the Vampire Chronicles. I read others like The Mummy, things like that, but the Vampire Chronicles were the ones for me. This is the woman who basically created the modern vampire myth. Before her, for the most part, vampires in film, television, and books were nearly always cast as the villain of the piece. Before her, vampires were nearly always just monsters. Demonic creatures there to kill humans and to be killed by humans. Anne Rice took that basic myth and turned it into something a little more beautiful, a little more tragic. Now, granted, it's become something of a trope since, and could arguably be said to have been turned into something even more horrifying.
Scream.
This sort of reformatting of the vampire mythos had a massive impact on popular culture itself, not just in movies and books, but on entire subcultures of society, such as tabletop nerds in the form of Vampire the Masquerade, and the goth subculture itself. There's no real downplaying the influence this woman had on the world, just as much, if not more than, J.K. Rowling. She was a literary titan, and she will be missed. The second story is a story of failing upward. A group of Batwoman writers, I don't know if it's all of them, but a small group of them nonetheless, are working on a new show after failing with 3 seasons to make Batwoman a relevant character. The show they're working on is apparently a rendition of Gotham Knights. The synopsis for the show sounds rather interesting. I guess Batman gets killed and the villain's kids are framed for it along with his adopted son. I mean, that could be interesting if it was any other time period aside from now, with any other writers aside from these. Next thing you know, Naomi Markman's going to be writing for Netflix's Demon Slayer adaptation. The third story is about desecration. This particular form of desecration comes in the form of someone using Stanley's account to shill a product, and fans of The Man aren't having any of that shit. Some articles, like the CBR one I have up, would frame it as people being outraged his Twitter account is being used to sell NFTs. Now, maybe some people are, and that's fine. However, at least for me, it's not so much that it's being used to shill some NFT, so much as it's being used to shill anything at all. Period. Anyone who's passed on if they had a Twitter account, that account should be locked up and left to the annals of time. Sort of like a museum piece. Especially someone like Stan the Man Lee. Especially someone like him. Though this incident does get me thinking about what other shenanigans Stan's been up to since his death. I mean, did he manage to get out and vote in any recent elections? Makes you wonder. The fourth story is a blurb. Spider-Man No Way Home hit theaters yesterday, and everyone seems to love it. I, myself, will probably go see it on my weekend. Which isn't the actual weekend, but my days off. I'd say I'll do a review, but I already have my review schedule planned out. Maybe I'll do an extra video next week. Who knows? The last story for the week seems to be about LeVar Burton, the actor most famous for playing Geordi LaForge in Star Trek, TNG, and hosting Reading Rainbow, revealing his own inherent bias against white people, i.e., his racism. Burton recently opined to the New York Times about his character not having enough romantic subplots on the old Star Trek show, stating that the, quote, white men writing the show had an unconscious bias toward me, revealed in the fact that a black man never was successful at one of the most basic, unquote. He goes on to use the old idiom, a lid for every pot, which is a common idiom for finding one's soulmate or true love. He then got into a long debate with various personalities at Bounding into Comics over the meaning of the idiom as he used it before ultimately blocking them. I then asked Burton if it were possible he just, quote, assumed the worst of white people, to which Burton responded with this. Now, I find this to be particularly upsetting and disheartening, since I honestly idolized LeVar Burton for decades. Since I was a child, I watched Star Trek The Next Generation with my mom all the time growing up, and Geordi LaForge was my favorite character, along with Worf and Data. I also watched Reading Rainbow all the time. Social media is possibly the most garbage thing ever created by human beings. The old aphorism of never meet your heroes applies to Twitter, especially, every moment of every day. It honestly does make me sad to learn that LeVar Burton is just another racist asshole. And I think I found my rant for tomorrow. That's the segment for the week, folks. Hopefully you enjoy this shorter form a bit more than the upwards of 20-minute long segments I've been doing. As always, I encourage you to look these stories up yourself and make up your own minds. What'd you think of what I covered this week? Let me know in that section down below. And while you're down there, consider smashing the like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate it. For real though, let me know what you think. I'll see you all tomorrow for my rant. Lates.